Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video, and welcome to a second kind of what else did I get for Christmas type of thing. This one's video game related, so just thought I would do posting about this. There's a very intriguing collection on here I want to try out. Got it in front of the TV. It's eventually going to find its home on, the one that has the little PlayStation TV console plugged into it. But this one is actually here, the AtGames Legends Flashback. Now this is the second one that has over 100 games, or well, says it has 100. I think there's one that has 110 as well. But yeah, this is pretty cool. There's specifically one game on here that somebody mentioned to me. It was on this console, and I thought, oh, I totally got to get this now. I'm not going to tell you which one just yet. But it has a huge assortment of Genesis games and a variety of other games. So we're going to try out some of these. But first of all, let's just see what comes in the box. What comes in the box here? Well, here's the instructions, and that shows pretty much what this thing can do. We got two Sega Genesis style 6-button controllers. I'll give those a little flip around in a sec. Power supply and the Legends Flashback itself. Wow, this is quite light. A little bit dusty too, actually. 2 ports on the front, instructions on the back. Place for USB power, HDMI out, and an SD card. There is a way to hack these things to play any Genesis games, but honestly, what's on here pretty much does for me. I don't really think I'm going to hack it. And what do we got here? Is that one is power and one is reset? Yeah. Oh. Well, that stays in and out, so that's got to be power, and that's probably reset there. Yeah, okay, so that's cool. Very light, probably a little heavier than a Raspberry Pi, but not much. There's our USB power supply, and yeah, so these controllers, they feel okay. I don't know about that D-pad. Actually, well, it's not a D-pad, but you know, this being gamepad here. That does not feel like a Genesis pad feels, but in a way that's actually kind of nice. It has a more noticeable cardinal direction, up, down, left, right. But the diagonals, like you can kind of feel like your thumb is riding on an octagon there, and you know which position you're in. I actually kind of like that. I'm going to try that out. And then these buttons are all right. They're all convex. They feel pretty decent. And the start button. Yeah, so compared to a Genesis controller, this is all right feeling. I don't know about that D-pad. Very curious to try that out. But anyway, let's actually plug it into the TV, and I will try out some of the games. And there's a couple on here I'm really, really thrilled to try out. Especially that one that somebody recommended I give a whirl. Let's see what we got. So when you fire this machine up, you've got, as I say, there's over 100 games in this thing, so I'm not going to go through them all. You start off with the features game list, and you can go through and you can check out what all these different recommended ones are. They've also got all the games listed, the arcade games specifically, the console games specifically, and then you've got some settings. Let's just go into one. Let's fire up 1942 here, and I'll show you some of the cool features. This thing has the standard kind of, you can do rewind, and you can add it to your favorites, so which is up at the top of the list here. So if I launch this, now, if I wanted to, well, okay, let's just launch the game to show you what it's like. There we go, 1942. We'll throw in a coin and start her up. It's the arcade version, plays really well, quite like it. So everybody knows 1942. Don't really have to do much of a play on that. But if I now hold the start button and also push to the left on the key on the control pad like that, I can back it up. I can rewind and undo all of my errors, which is really nice. Not all the games have that. You'll see a couple of warnings on some of these games saying the rewind feature is not available in this title, but I quite like that feature there. And let's just go out. To exit out of a game, you hit the start button again and push up. And you have an option to insert a coin, which is quite nice because I think some of these, they've got a default amount of credits, and if you run out, you will always just be able to throw in some more coins this way. You can save games into one of 5 save slots, which I have done for a couple to keep my high score. The others are not really games that require much in the way of progress, but there's save slots available for that. So, and you can turn on scan lines, of course, which most of these things have. Let's quit out of here. If I like, down at the bottom where it says press the C button to add to my favorites, I'm going to do that, and there's going to be a star in the right-hand side. So you can see there is now a gold star up there, so 1942 is added to my favorites list. And when I hit B to go back out. So that in itself is how all the standard games are played. Now, I've got quite a few already in my favorites list, including the reason that I got this thing. But before I get to that, there's a couple that are sort of honorable mentions here. It's got the arcade version of Ghouls and Ghosts. Let's fire that up. This is one of those games that is not compatible with the rewind feature. And it also takes a long time to load. This one is actually the longest loading screen on the whole console. And here we are. We've got arcade version of Ghouls and Ghosts, which is ironic because I was actually thinking of getting Super Ghouls and Ghosts for the Sega Genesis. And I know that I've heard that GameSack has said it's the easiest version of any of these games to play, so I'd always thought of picking that up, but man, they want a lot of money for it. And then, big thanks to Lawn Boys Post 1975, he actually did a comparison of the Genesis/Mega Drive version compared to what the arcade machine was like, and he even mentions the fact that GameSack say it's the easiest version, because he says it's not that easy at all. So I'm feeling better. I'm not going to pick up the Genesis one now. I'm just going to play this because it's not arcade perfect. The Genesis one is not arcade perfect, but dang it. I'm pretty happy to now have this in a way that I don't need to get that Genesis version. And I might actually come back and play this sometime because I'm lousy at it. Another arcade great that they have on here is Super Street Fighter 2, The New Challengers, which I have to say, this is probably one of the main reasons I love this new console. And of course we'll do Chun-li now. It's interesting, the volume is not standard across, so I've got to turn it up a bit here. Now what I really like is this D-pad on this controller. I have fallen in love with this thing. I've actually had one of my best games of Street Fighter using this controller. And it's ironic that I actually did a video not too long ago, well maybe about a year ago now actually, that talked about how the Super NES version of Street Fighter was actually the one I ended up playing because although I like the Genesis pad, I find the D-pad on the Super NES controller is actually the better way to play, the one that I like. This controller, this D-pad on this thing, is really nice. I have no way to describe it, but it's almost like there's almost an embossed X inside or cross shape inside the regular Genesis type of sliding disc D-pad. The first time I played this thing, I actually had one of my best games ever, so I am really loving this version of this controller, and the fact that now I can play Street Fighter in a really, really relaxed, not relaxed, what's the word I'm looking for? In a mode that allows me to play really well, and has all these great characters on it, and I gotta really concentrate. Anyway, I'm liking this version of Street Fighter. Let's get Fei Long here before he kills me off. That's just... Come on, buddy. There, you're out of there. Love Street Fighter on this, and I love this controller. I'm going to talk a bit more about the controller itself in just a sec, but there's also some really cool games on here that it didn't occur to me that there would be some hidden gems on here. There really are. Let me just pull up one in the arcade section. I've gone through all 100. I'm not going to talk about them, but I think what I might do is I might do a follow-up of the hidden gems that come on this console and also the stinkers, because my god, there are a lot of them. But there was one that I was going through this list and I fired it up. Exerion. I had forgotten this game existed. It's a Jalico game, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I remember this game. Wow, this is taking me back a ways. It's clunky as heck, and I remember that. And I remember not really paying too much money into it back in the day because I found it so janky and rough. But it's great to be able to play it again. Ooh, he's got me. But this is one of those hidden gems. I was just like, oh my god, I had totally forgotten games like this were around. And there's a bunch like that on here. I mean, I'm really liking the selection that this console delivers. Well, that was garbage. Let's move on to another. There's one in the console list that I had actually talked about a long time ago, and here it's called Water Margin, The Tale of Clouds and Wind, but I had actually done a video about this a couple of years ago during Chinese New Year. I talked about this being a Genesis game, and on there, or on the cartridge itself, it's actually called Shui Hu Bong Yun Juan. Yes, that was the one. But now it's just on here as the Tale of Clouds and Wind, and I love it because now I can just fire it up and play it. So let's go with, yeah, Water Margin. See, there it is in English, which is kind of a nice bonus. This is a great game, by the way. Really recommend it. I always play this character. Here, let's do that. Yeah, does anybody remember me talking about this one, where you've got the character who can... It's essentially like Knights of the Round, but it doesn't have any of the sound issues that I had with the Super NES game, and I was very unhappy that they never released it on Sega Genesis. So this is that game, and it's really good. Highly recommend it. Let's see if I can do one of the magic abilities here. Nope, not gonna do it. Anyway, nice brawler, really a lot of fun. Oh, there's the magic. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. Used her power. Great graphics on this. Love this game. I'm very happy that it's just included on this set. So let's go on. In reading reviews about this Legends Flashback, people brought up that it has Zaxxon on it, and I was like, oh, okay, fine, that's cool. And then they said, unfortunately, it's the ColecoVision version. And my ears immediately pricked up because I played the ColecoVision and I kind of like it more, just for nostalgic purposes. I never had a ColecoVision, but the kids that I babysat did, and they had Zaxxon on it. So I gotta play it. I gotta fire it up here for you. Now this kind of brings up what is interesting about having to use this controller. On the ColecoVision controller itself, when you want to play one of these games, you have to choose from this list with the number pad. And all I've got is a Genesis controller here. But if I press the Y button, it actually brings up a ColecoVision style number pad, including the star and the asterisk, or the pound and the asterisk there, which are useful in some selections. And yeah, I would just go around. This unfortunately makes it that you absolutely have to have a 6-button controller to get the full use out of this Flashback console. You can play with just a 3-button controller, like you can plug it in and it works for games that only use 1, 2, or 3 buttons. But if you need to access this thing in order to fire up one of the ColecoVision games, you got to have a 6-button controller. So let me just very quickly do a little Zaxxon here. B is actually what selects it, and then you hit Y again to get it out of your way. And there it is. There is the ColecoVision version of Zaxxon. I haven't played this in years, and I was so happy to see this. And there's a couple of other games on here that are also from the ColecoVision that the kids I used to babysit had on their machines. So I'm sitting there like, oh my god, this is great. This is actually something that I haven't played in ages. I don't have a ColecoVision, and yeah, I could get an emulator or whatever, but I kind of thought or forgot about a lot of the ColecoVision titles, and now here I am. I can actually play these on this new console. This is absolutely great. I am so thrilled about this. Let me get the other one up on here. Choplifter. I love this one. Didn't play it on ColecoVision, but I did play it on the PC. We had an Apple II type machine. So some people were talking in reviews of this Flashback console. Unfortunately, it's not the arcade one, which we all wish it would be. And I'm sitting there going, no, this is the one that I like. This is the original kind of TV or PC version that I remember playing as a kid. And so I'm really happy here that I can actually get the game that I originally played. Oh, you bugger. Alright, let's land. Let's rescue some of these guys. And then we'll get them back to base, and that'll be it for Choplifter. But yeah, I'm super happy. I've got this game that I have not played in forever. And here it is. Exactly the version that I played, including the horrendous color scheme. And yay! Here's one that I asked Mainmeister about in a question a little while ago. Oils Well. This is actually a lot harder than I was expecting. So we'll give this a try. Oh, actually, this one uses a different kind of a built-in menu. I guess I'll go regular. And it's kind of Pac-Man, but it's also kind of Dig Dug. And it's taking me a while to get used to it, but I'm very happy that I can now play... Oh, no! I can play Oils Well, which is great. Now, it's not all great news. On this page here, I was working my way through the list. Again, I'll do the hidden gems versus the real stinkers, because my goodness, there are quite a few in another video. But I tried out the Jungle Book. Where is that? Hang on. Yeah, over under the letter T, of course. It doesn't work. I mean, I can do, say, for example, the Lion King. That launches just fine. There, that one is. That's just A-okay. If I go back and then up and over to the Jungle Book, it looks like it's going to launch. And then it boots me back to the menu. I had thought maybe under here, under settings, you have the ability to change your bezel if you want, and I think you might be able to download newer ones, because there is an SD card on the back. You notice here you've got the ability to back up to SD and restore from SD. I use that for all my high score saves. Yes, there's an ability to hack this thing so you can play games off the SD card, but I think they're only Genesis games, and the vast majority of the Genesis games I want are now on here, or I have them on Genesis, or I have them on that portable Genesis, so I'm good for wanting to hack it. But yeah, so you can adjust, you can get maybe some new bezels. I'm just sticking with the good old default black. What's also over here, though, you can turn the background music on and off. There's this overdrive feature, which I looked up. Apparently that helps with some sprite generation. It gives it like a boost. I tried turning that on and then going back and trying the Jungle Book, but it didn't make any difference. And I didn't really notice anything else with any of the other games that suffered slight slowdown. I didn't see any improvement. Let's try this again here. Yeah, so it just keeps booting me back, so that's no good at all. Don't really know what overdrive's benefit is. However, I'm going to wrap up the games that come on this thing and then talk about the unit in general one last time. But I've been hinting all this time, what was the actual game that got me into this? Why did I want this thing? There was a guy who left a comment on which version of Fix-It Felix is best. The one that's on the arcade ROM that you can't really find, the one that's on the Genesis, the one that was on iOS, or the Atari 2600 one, which I loved. And that guy left a comment saying, hey, you know, in this new Legends Flashback, they've got Fix-It Felix, and it is that arcade ROM. And I thought, what? Oh, I gotta get this for that. Let me just fire this up here. Here it is, Fix-It Felix, that arcade ROM, and it is perfect to the one that I play. I usually have that fired up on Vol, but now it's like, no, I can just play it on this thing. Slight problem, it doesn't have the voices, which you can, with the one that I have on Vol, I've actually added some files. There's ways to hack it so that you can actually hear both Ralph say, I'm gonna wreck it, and also the people in the building, or yeah, hey, you moved my stump. All those voices are missing, unfortunately. But let me fire this up because I'm just so thrilled that I've actually got a way to play this as a plug-and-play device. This is it. This is awesome. I'm loving the fact that I've got this now in a very easy to play form. I like playing it on Vol and I like it with the voices, but this is nice that I can just do this very simply and easily, and it plays really well, especially with this controller. So I'm super happy. I was trying to look up the fellow's name that made that comment because I was going to totally give him a shout out or a recommendation or whatever you want, but unfortunately I can't find him in the comments anymore, so that's too bad. But dude, if I ever do find your name, I'll put it down below in the notes. And I'm really, really glad that you mentioned, oh yeah, the arcade ROM was actually made available for this flashback cartridge. I thought, yes, fantastic. Now I can play this thing. There's a lot of other games. As I say, there's 100 of them on here. Some real great games that I am very glad to be playing again, like those ColecoVision titles especially. And yeah, this is the game that made me want to get this thing. So happy. It's kind of ironic too, because last year I got a Felix mini cab for Christmas. Now this year I've got this version of Felix for Christmas. So yeah, love this Legends Flashback. This thing is really amazing, and Fix-It Felix, baby. That is the main reason to get this game, or this console. Also, really love this controller. I'm really quite surprised. As I said before, you know, standard buttons and all that kind of stuff feels good, but it almost feels like there's a... The only way I can describe it is it feels like a Genesis controller, but almost like somebody has embossed the 4 cardinal directions in there, which makes left and right, up and down a lot more... I'm aware that I'm hitting those directions more so than kind of on an angle. It's really a nice controller, and I didn't think that I would end up liking it. I did try my original Sega Genesis controller, 6-button, totally works, but I found that you know, this mushiness here is, maybe that's beneficial. Some people like that for being able to play, but I'm a lot better with Chun-Li using this controller than I was using this controller. Also, I did notice every once in a while, now it might be just this particular unit of mine, but there seemed to be a little bit hedging of, you know, anytime I was moving to the right, I would sometimes let go and it was just still moving a little bit to the right. I don't know if that's something in this controller maybe, but I never had that problem with this. Also, as much as I much as I really like the original hardware, something I would warn anybody who's thinking of just using this instead of the stock controller, as I was playing, very often my finger would brush up against the mode button here, And that's fine, except for what would happen is every time I did that, as I was in the middle of, a frantic bit of gaming, if you hit that mode button, it brings up the menu in the middle of the game. So since this one doesn't have a mode button, I actually would recommend using this over the original 6-button controller. I did mention that the original 3-button controller does work, and you can, select you can go and quit the game by pressing start and up, or you can rewind, start and to the left. But it's only good for games, the vast majority, except for Street Fighter, the vast majority of the games are just using these 3 buttons, and this is totally fine for that. And you can get in and out of exiting and launching those arcade games and Genesis games. And the Super NES games. There's also like the Super Star Wars games on here. No problems at all as far as that's concerned. But if you're going to be using the ColecoVision titles, you're going to need the Y. You need to be able to press that button there in order to bring up that specialized menu to launch games and make selections like the D-pad or the asterisk or the hashtag or the pound sign or the whatever. So you're going to have a problem. I mean, yes, this will work, but it doesn't work very well on the console because you need to be able to access that other menu to be able to launch some of the ColecoVision stuff. Also, to reduce our number of buttons even further, I had actually kind of hoped when I launched Fix-It Felix, maybe I could just then unplug the stock controller and put in an Atari 2600 controller, because I would really quite like to play, just since it's only a single button game, maybe this would work. Unfortunately, no, this thing is not recognized at all, not even the left to right. So there's no point in trying to get an Atari 2600 to work with this thing, because it's simply, even though there are games that only have a single button type firing mechanism, this thing is not recognized. Maybe our good buddies at Wired Up Retro have some adapter that would make this work on this console. Who knows? Anything's possible. But just as far as like plugging it in, launching a game, and then sticking this into the control box there, this isn't going to work. However, what do I care? I've got the Legends Flashback with 100 games. This is really, really nice. The Fix-It Felix one. I recommend this highly. There's a lot of really good games on here. And again, memories of old, like the ColecoVision stuff. I was just like, oh my God, Zach's on. That's great. And it's even got Aladdin, which I was kind of thinking of picking up someday, the Sega Genesis version, because I've heard such great things. That's on here. So yeah, and a lot of the Mega Man games too. So super happy, love this thing. Probably going to do some more videos about some of the stuff that I've discovered on here. That like there's a game I was almost going to talk about that I don't even know how to launch it or how to properly play it. I might ask everybody's help on that one. That's an example. Or as I say, some of the stinkers, because my God, there's some real clunky games on here. But what a great gift. So that was the other thing I got for Christmas. And you've probably noticed my voice is a bit raspy. That's had a very bad cold, so that's why this video is so late. But more videos coming out anytime soon. And until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.